Chief, um, Boardman's at a crossroads, at least you say. Why do you say Boardman's at a crossroads?
Well, like most communities, Boardman has experienced some financial decline, and as a result of that, our police department has gone from a number of 63 sworn officers, plus a fairly decent support staff, to now 47 officers with next to no support staff, which means I have to have officers do clerical work, secretarial work, which is not a good investment. And what's been happening in the last, my sense tells me 3 to 4 years, is Boardman has really begun to absorb a lot of the urban problems coming out of the city. The housing crisis in Youngstown is substantial, and as a result of people just not having a place to live in the city, they now come to Boardman. And it seems that we've had a drastic increase in the amount of crime in general, and what most panics me is the amount of hard drugs that we're actually seeing being dealt out of residences and apartments in Boardman at this time.
Tell me a little bit more about the drugs. How many drug raids did there used to be versus now?
Well, in my first probably 25 years as a policeman in Boardman, I don't think in all of those 20 years I saw a total in 25 years of 20 drug raids conducted as a result of search warrants on locations where drugs were being sold in total. And in the last 5 to 6 years, it's increased to the point where we probably average one a week. We're probably at least raiding 50 locations a year, and there's complaints of drug houses that we just can't get to. There's a stack right now of 50-some complaints of active drug houses in Boardman that we just don't have the manpower to investigate. Those investigations are manpower intensive. We can't raid a drug house based on a neighbor's complaint. We have to surveil it, we have to develop evidence, we eventually have to write a search warrant, a raid has to be conducted, evidence has to be cataloged. So as a good average, it probably takes a month's work to shut down one drug location. And at this point, with our manpower being where it's at, I have one officer available to work drug cases, and so we have a backlog of essentially drug houses that need to be investigated and need to be raided, but we can only get to maybe one a week, and so the backlog grows.
Would you say that criminals are starting to feel comfortable in Boardman?
Well, that's all part of what's happened here is, the example that I've used in giving presentations to the community, that in a police department, the patrol division, the marked cars and the officers in uniform that you see, the single most important function that they perform is to be paying attention, to be looking, to be on the hunt for criminals doing bad things in real time. And they pay attention to little things. They look for the dirty license plate on the clean car. They look for that glance away like that where somebody doesn't want to make eye contact with them. And they stop and investigate those matters, and you would be surprised how often every day that turns up people transporting guns, people on their way to transporting drugs to and from drug houses, stolen property. And that type of police activity is what keeps the thugs uncomfortable. But when a police department gets to the point where all the officers do, all the patrol division does is respond to calls, they go from call to call to call to call to call, they don't have time to engage in this hunting activity that really is what keeps your community nice. It keeps the thugs uncomfortable, it keeps them out of your community. And that's the position we found ourselves in here in the last several years. Our patrol division, from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the morning, they go from call to call to call to call to call. And as a result, the change that we're seeing in the community, the thugs, and I would be less than honest if I didn't tell you, they come right off the south side, feel very brazen and very comfortable in our community right now. 100 yards from the place we're sitting right now doing this interview, last Tuesday, which was a week ago, there was a drug raid in a heroin house. where the man that was dealing the heroin had just gotten out of prison for aggravated murder, had a loaded gun, was dealing heroin out of the house, and it was a duplex, and the people on the lower floor were smoking dope at the time our officers were raiding the house. And so it's become quite prevalent, and it's something that just concerns me. It keeps me up at night.
And 100 yards from where we are we?
We are at Clifton and Market.